This week's episode was brought to you by Jamie Simmerman, Anthony Reamer, and Chris Whitaker. Thank you, Jamie Simmerman, Anthony Reamer, and Chris Whitaker. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you that keeps our army of skeleton warriors fed on the freshly harvested organ meat from sentient prehistoric cephalopods we procured using illegally stored time machines that run on potato chips, pencil shavings, and hummingbird farts. If you'd like to help keep our skeletal denizens full of seafood, or just want to hear the second half of this show, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your small monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you access to the second half of this episode, but all our episodes, guaranteed to expose you as a weirdo to the people overhearing it. But that's not all. I'll send you a 5x5 vinyl sticker of our big Bunfamit cover art and the secret keys to our Discord server, where we hatch our latest plans of world domination. If your wallet is giving you back problems or your purse is overflowing with money, there's also a $10 option where you can read our voluminous show notes at your leisure. And a $20 a month tier will get you a tarot reading from yours truly over video every month that you're subscribed. If you enjoy The Whole Rabbit, but think longer episodes would make the show unbearable, then please consider supporting us by throwing us a like, subscribe, or share on your social media platform of choice. It really helps. On this week's episode, we part with the Queen of Heaven to brave the desolate heights and sit at the shiny, metal-plated feet of the Emperor of the Tarot as he preaches, plans, and prognosticates upon his thick, rocky slab of a throne carved with horny-headed Rams of Aries. We discuss the murderous divine right of kings, the mythological lineage of Caesar, the Crux Ansata, and the Emperor's long historical association with rams going all the way back to ancient Mesopotamia and, of course, Egypt. In the extended episode, we discuss the occult powers of the number 4, magic beards, the Emperor's path on the Qabalistic Tree of Life, the hieroglyphic origin of the cards Hebrew letter association, the secrets of alchemy, bees, honey, and even some Easter eggs hidden in Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Occult dating app? Why not?
I'm down. I need to find my wizard.
That'd be kind of cool.
I put on my robe and wizard hat.
I was great. You loved it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just climb every mountain, search high and low, follow every rainbow and all the paths you already know. Nay, we ride the King's Highway West in a desperate land through a Roman wilderness of pain, without safety or surprise, my beautiful friend, because this week we're discussing the mythology, history, and occult significance of the Emperor of the Tarot, and why we call him the Son of the Morning. I'm your host, Luke Madrid, also known as the Hack Rabbit. I'm joined this week by the Canine Queen, Maurice Hama.
Mark, hail, loyal subjects.
The powerful patriarch, Malachor V.
Unlimited power!
And the babe of the golden bow, Heka Astra.
Hello.
Okay, now this is my favorite card in the deck.
I guess this show isn't a surprise since we're doing a series on some tarot cards.
This would be the 5th one, in case you didn't know. As you may have figured out, today we are continuing our journey through the tarot, moving from the emerald gardens of the Empress to the ruddish, lonely peaks where the Emperor is enthroned, overlooking his vast empire, perched high above his subjects, the world glimmering like smoldering embers under his impelling gaze. In his hand a scepter is firmly held, gesturing as if to command the sun itself to rise, her glorious rays cresting the halo of his mighty crown as it shimmers resplendent in the dawn. Beneath his touch the earth itself trembles, the lowly beasts bowing their head in knowing reverence as his heart subsumes the sacred groves with steadfast abundance. Carved upon his mighty throne are the Rams of Aries, the first sign and head of the zodiac, to which the Emperor of the Tarot is attributed. So to begin, we may ask, what is an emperor? As we discussed in last week's episode, the words emperor and empress have their etymological roots in the Latin imperium, meaning to put orders into, and was used to describe the authority of the Roman head of state. Thus, an emperor is the masculine addition of one who puts things into order and issues orders to others.
To make this all sound poetic and epic, the emperor is the lord of the earth, or their own personal world, the material world, and they would understand what they're in control of should they become the ruler of said empire. They know how to manifest things within their domain. They know what can and cannot be changed. They're at peace with certain elements present in their state. And the emperor, I think most importantly, must make choices and take responsibility. the inverse idea of an emperor are more or less stereotypical bad guys that you can see in any politician and across pop culture and video games and comics and such.
Same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Even your own parents are like your emperor and your empress for a while you're living.
This is true.
I'm just thinking about the God Emperor Trump meme.
Oh, they're pretty good.
They're great.
Yeah, like in 40K, mankind has this dude called the Emperor of Man or Mankind, the God Emperor, and he's basically your biblical Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh or Yahweh. All the stories are about him in the past, like creating man and doing all this stuff. He's like a 10-foot plus tall dude in like space marine armor that, you know, in the 30K years, he was at war with all the alien species, eventually making the biggest empire in all of the galaxy. And in an act of self-sacrifice, put his decaying body on a golden throne that demands like 1,000 sacrifices a day to keep his brain alive so that he can use his powers to direct all of the ships in mankind's army.
How about that one?
Pretty insane. He did that in the middle of the Horus heresy, by the way.
That's why you have to keep sprinkling the brain in the jar with nose drugs to keep its power unlimited.
So they have great memes of Trump in that man's armor, like in the middle of glorious battles.
It's really funny.
If you have kids, Maui from the movie Moana, perfect example.
Of course, we got Palpatine from Star Wars.
I am the Senate.
Totally. In terms of kings, queens, emperors, magicians, high priests, Star Wars has it all, and it's probably because it's closer to medieval fantasy than it is sci-fi. And as we know, when you're talking about medieval fantasy, the power of the emperor or the king usually comes from his blood or his bloodline, his lineage.
Matriarchal cultures of old would depend upon the lineage of the female, and any introduction of a new king was often as a result of said warrior having to kill the old king and win the princess, so to speak.
Yeah, that's how it works.
So with the introduction of a new king would come initiation of a new cycle and order. Historically speaking, this serves as an example for the shift of matriarchal system to patriarchal system. Hence the former card of the empress transitioning to the card of the emperor on the fool's journey. And in terms of archetypes, he's the universal father, just as the empress represents the archetype of the universal mother. So my question with the emperor is, does it come down to divine right, or is this egoic might?
I think it's ego. I feel like the divine right answer is a little wrong to subscribe to personally.
Well, I mean, unless you view everyone as having divine right, then it really ends up coming down to egoic might. Like if we're all born of the same God, then we all have the same divine right. So then it really comes down to egoic might.
Right, I agree.
No, there has to be people with less than me. And it has to be of worse quality. Otherwise, what I have, it doesn't even mean anything, right?
That's actually a great point. Because that's what this card embodies, though, is somebody who's higher up than all the rest, right?
It's not so much about how much I have. It's more about how little everyone else has.
With that power and owning all of the wealth and all that comes a big responsibility too. You can choose to abdicate your responsibilities when you are in that position, but I think that's not such a good idea, as in people will straight up just cut your head off.
Well, to answer this riddle of divine right, we might look to one of the most imperial, patriarchal, warlike, emperor-having cultures of all time, ancient Rome.
Rome definitely has like a mystical origins about two brothers raised by wolves, finding a special spot between 7 hills. Like there's a whole legend about it. That theme carries over through all the emperors, and like we have to hold that legend true and we'll use it.
And so a lot of what we're going to discuss today is Roman propaganda. But what you might not expect is that the influence of matriarchal lineage upon the emperor's right to rule is an all-important aspect of ancient Roman mythology as well. And whimsically, it expounds on the hidden and yet not so hidden dynamic between both the empress and the emperor archetypes. As we discussed in our last episode, the Romans had a special place in their heart for Venus, the planetary association with the empress. To the Romans, Venus Aphrodite was both their ancestral mother and symbolic of the power that love had to influence pre-established arrangements for better or for worse. Mythologically speaking, because Venus Aphrodite had fallen for and made love with a mortal man, Anchises, we may extrapolate this to mean that average mortals might seduce gods to effect change in their world too. This specific dynamic is the origin of the word veneration, which originally pertained to the worship of Venus, specifically for this purpose. Here, the courtship of the gods amounted to tangible power that a king, a priest, or a priest-king was expected to possess. In the case of the Romans, Aphrodite hooking up with Anchises was thought to be where the Julians, the imperial family of Rome, found their origin. Ultimately, this line culminated in arguably the most powerful and successful emperor in all of human history, Augustus Caesar. In terms of what you think of when you think of an emperor, Augustus Caesar is like that and more. In terms of like all-time powerful conquerors, he might be number one, if not, fighting for that position with Genghis Khan or whatever. Now, our story picks up where it left off last time.
Jupiter was white boy angry at Aphrodite, believing her responsible for him always falling in love with mortal women.
So he hexed her to fall in love with mortal men, resulting in a sultry hookup between Anchises and herself, disguised as none other than a Phrygian princess. So she put on all of Hecate's clothes. She made herself into like a little magic girl. Now, as lovely as this must have been, when Anchises found out that he had knocked up the goddess Aphrodite herself, he was understandably a bit afraid, but was assured that no harm would come to him as long as he made like Snoop Dogg and never told anyone.
You don't love me, you just love my doggy style.
Naturally, mortal men find it difficult to not brag about hooking up with goddesses. Zeus found out and either killed or just maimed him badly with a thunderbolt, depending on who you ask. The child of their sultry union would be none other than Aeneas, Rome's archetypal hero king.
You got this.
Well, the Greek Homer came up with the story first, making Aeneas a bit of a side character. Virgil's Aeneid between 29 and 19 BCE would make the story of Aeneas a central pillar of Rome's fervent nationalism. According to myth, Aeneas grew up as Trojan royalty and served as a commander of Trojan forces during the war with Greece. Following the fall of Troy, Aeneas, described as a man of great honor and piety, was tasked with leading a group of Trojan refugees to safety in order to secure a new homeland for them. Low on supplies and in need of safe haven, the Trojan refugees found temporary home at Carthage, where Aeneas would fall so hard in love with Queen Dido, they almost never left. One fateful night, however, Aeneas was sent a dream by the gods, who reminded him of his ultimate destiny, a man who would find a suitable homeland for his people. Torn between staying with the woman he loved and fulfilling his destiny, Aeneas set sail on his quest, leaving Dido alone, who, stricken with a broken heart, herself. Aeneas, now having lost everything he loved, set sail for Italy, where he encountered the Sibylline oracles of Cumae in hopes that they might set him on the right path. As expected, the Sibylline oracles knew exactly what to do, and following Aeneas' sincere supplications to Apollo to help the Trojans settle Latium, he was informed that doing so would require a heroic quest, at least as bloody as the Trojan War itself, and that he should seek his father in the underworld of Din in order to seek his guidance. The Sibyl informs Aeneas that if he is to accomplish his task and return from Din alive, he must be given a sign, and he must seek out a golden branch in a nearby forest. Sibyl instructs him that if the golden bow breaks from the tree easily, fate has called Aeneas to the underworld. But if he is not meant to visit Din, then the golden bow will not come off of the tree. When Aeneas sees the forest, he is forlorn due to its immense size. But after praying fervently, two doves lead him along the way to the sacred tree, where it offers its golden branch easily. Returning victorious, Sibyl leads him to the gates of Din, where he encounters the river Styx, the many souls stranded there, and the boatman Charon, who agrees to ferry him across after seeing that he possesses the golden bow. Inside of Din, he beholds many of his slain Greek foes, who run away in terror at the sight of him, and even Dido, whose presence shocks and saddens him deeply, pleading that he did not leave of his own volition. After passing by the fortress of Rhadamanthus, who is doling out hideous tortures to the damned, the Sibyl and Aeneas finally arrive at the Blessed Groves, where his father greets him warmly and commends him on having made such a difficult journey. Anchises gladly answers Aeneas' many questions about how souls are processed in Din and how the good ones might eventually reach the fields of gladness. He then explains the reason for his harrowing journey, that Aeneas is meant to seed his lineage in Italy, where he and his Trojan descendants will one day include both Romulus, who will found Rome, and Caesar, from his family line, who will someday initiate a golden age where Rome will rule over the whole of the earth. Bolstered by his father's prophetic guidance, Aeneas returns to the surface world, reunites with his comrades, pulls up anchor, and continues along the coast to fulfill his destiny and conquer Italy.
Did you mean to say both Romulus and Remus?
We don't talk about Remus because he lost the fight. But yes,
Hmm.
it was more important that the Julian line and the one day Julius and then Augustus Caesar would rule from his Aphroditean lineage.
Right, because it's Romulus who the lineage of the Caesars family line comes from, correct?
Yes, and if we trace it all the way back, it goes to Aphrodite. Of course, when Julius Caesar came to power, he was also like, well, Jupiter's also my ancestor. I have both, Aphrodite and Jupiter. Duh.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the sacred grove of Lake Nemi. James George Frazer, in his iconic text, The Golden Bow, speculates that the myth of Aeneas is part of a mythological fabric that explains the bloody rites of kingly succession from the sacred grove at Lake Nemi of classical antiquity, sometimes referred to as the Mirror of Diana, which was presided over by a frightful king of the wood known as the Rex Nemorensis. Rather than a personification of Venus herself, the king at Lake Nemi was wed to a lunar goddess, the goddess of the hunt, Diana, through his station as the keeper of the sacred grove.
On the northern shore of the lake, right under the precipitous cliffs on which the modern village of Nemi is perched, stood the sacred grove and sanctuary of Diana Nemorensis, or Diana of the Wood. The lake and the grove were sometimes known as the Lake and Grove of Aricia. In this sacred grove, there grew a certain tree round which at any time of the day, and probably far into the night, a strange figure might be seen to prowl. In his hand he carried a drawn sword, and he kept peering warily about him as at every instant he expected to be set upon by an enemy. He was a priest and a murderer, and the man for whom he looked was sooner or later to murder him and hold the priesthood in his stead. Such was the rule of the sanctuary. A candidate for the priesthood could only succeed to office by slaying the priest, and having slain him, he held office till he himself was slain by a stronger or craftier
That's
person.
some Dark Souls shit.
I, of course, love to speculate that's what the doors, the end, is actually about.
Here, here.
In terms of the Roman myth of Aeneas, Frazer goes on to say,
Tradition averred that the fateful branch was that the golden bough which at the Sibyl's bidding Aeneas plucked before he essayed the perilous journey to the world of the dead.
So things are starting to make some sense. If we think about our last two episodes, about the Empress and the High Priestess, about what they represent, something about our primordial union with God itself, the Godhead, we might say. The Emperor, as being wed to that, becomes a representative of its power.
It's a little bit interesting that it goes from wed to Venus, or of a lineage relating to Venus, to Diana, who is a virgin.
Because as we know, in the myth with Venus, or Aphrodite, she hooks up with Anchises because she's overwhelmed with love and lust, where Diana's ever a virgin.
I think it's interesting to switch to the virgin because if you take into account historically the murder of the king and the supposed winning of his daughter, in becoming the new king, you would take the daughter of the old king as your wife, who would typically be a virgin. So maybe that's kind of why that ended up being switched to Diana. It at least goes hand in hand with it.
I think this is where we begin to see the vision of the emperor's power as being derived from nature, which, as we discussed in last week's show, is our mother, but is also innocent. Like, the tiger is innocent when it kills a zebra, right? Like, it's not a murderer, and neither is the king. The king is just doing what needs to be done. And so perhaps that's what those mysteries are beginning to hint at. As we will see, the archetypal emperor visiting the realm of the dead as well tends to be an important motif we find over and over again. The idea is so well represented in the emperor's association with the zodiacal sign of Aries, which itself has long been associated with daddy dying grain gods like Jesus, Osiris, and of course, Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, this journey to the land of the dead, it's kind of like saying crossing the abyss. You know, it's the same idea, just at different ideas.
Absolutely. It's the primordial place from whence we came and to where we will go again when we die. Like in our last two episodes, we discussed that archetypal association is to the Empress and the High Priestess, the mother of our egos, which the ego we could associate, of course, with the Emperor. To play on this theme, the Emperor is the first of 12 cards of the Major Arcana to be associated with a constellation of the zodiac. In the case of the Emperor, he's associated with the first constellation of the zodiacal year, Aries, the Ram. The association between the constellation Aries and the Ram goes all the way back to Babylonian clay tablets in the 13th century BCE, which separated the sky into 12 distinct sections and assisted in keeping track of when to plant and harvest different agricultural resources. You know, kind of like the Farmer's Almanac today.
Well, that's some pretty useful information.
I love those.
It's funny to think that's what it was originally for. Anyway, The Greeks would later adopt these 12 zodiacal signs, which we still enjoy today. On several of these boundary stones, the ram is used as a distinct symbol of the constellation and was referred to as mula hunga, which meant the agrarian worker, or the hired man. Keep that in your mind for a while. At this time, the Aries constellation was considered the final zodiacal station rather than the first one, with the Pleiades being used to designate the spring equinox, which was accurate for the time. By 1000 BC, the ram had become a commonplace symbol of the constellation due to its growing association with the mythological Dumuzi, the shepherd, who, in his association with goats and rams in various Sumerian texts, becomes a perfect symbol for Aries. Most importantly, as is the Emperor of the Tarot, Dumuzi was well known for his marriage to the Queen of Heaven, who in Sumerian mythology is Inanna, the same one who descends into the underworld. When she returns after being trapped there for a time, she discovers Dumuzi isn't even mourning her, and so she allows the Gala demons to drag him to the underworld in her stead.
What a bitch.
That's rough.
It's part of the emperor process, you know?
All of Ziegler's friends just come get Dumuzi.
Who do you think those people were?
When she starts to feel bad about it, Inanna decrees that Dumuzi may take 6-month shifts between death in the underworld and life above ground, alternating with his sister Gestinana. His 6 months above ground were thought to correspond to the fertile wet season when life flourished, while the hot, dry heat of the midsummer month, also named Tammuz, held funerary rites of mourning performed in his honor. Sounds a little bit like Persephone.
A lot like that.
Yeah, it sounds very similar.
The cult of Dumuzi later spread to the Levant and to Greece, where he became known under the West Semitic name Adonis, who was thought to be the lover of Aphrodite prior to being gored to death by a wild boar. In terms of the tarot, Dumuzi's throne was sometimes depicted as being held up or even pulled by rams, which are carved into the stone of the Emperor's throne in the Rider-Waite depiction of the card. In the Thoth deck, the Emperor is flanked by 2 solar discs emblazoned with pointed stars emblematic of his lover Inanna. Although they're 16 pointed stars, they look a lot like the 8 pointed stars. That's my contention.
Yeah, there's different colors and layers of the rays of the star going on, and the star of Inanna is much more bold, I think, in the drawing.
So I think here we establish the idea that the Emperor is somebody who sows his seed. And it's not a stretch to imagine if the Empress is the earth itself and the Emperor is a seed. As he goes into the ground, it's like he's being buried. And then after some time comes, it sprouts something you could eat. And that's why we have the Eucharist. I think we've also discussed on this show that in terms of evolutionary biology, we think of women as the initial sex, which then evolved men. And we see this elsewhere in nature, how the female will become a male. And so the idea of a hired worker or somebody who's just there to work the field corresponds to the strangely disposable genetic imperative that is man.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of species use the male sex to do work. I mean, it only makes sense because the females are diverting all their energy to childbirth.
And at least in supposedly our legal system, our quote unquote emperor is a public servant, right? He's just a hired person. He's just do your job. Like, he's not some god. He's just some worker.
I don't think they like to be told that.
No. Especially not Zeus.
Yeah, Zeus, or Jupiter as he's known in Rome, he was the king of the gods and he ruled on Mount Olympus. As a god of the sky, he was known for his ferocious lightning bolt, ability to control the weather, and of course, his unquenchable thirst for mortal women, whether the hookup was consensual or not. Nonetheless, Zeus was worshipped throughout Greece as a just and righteous god. In addition to his role as the king of the gods, Jupiter was also associated with fertility and was also invoked by farmers and shepherds. Like, he brought fortune. He is a card of prosperity and wealth. Egypt, he was equated with the god Amun, and in Babylon, he was identified with the god Marduk.
Which are both kings.
Yep.
And so right from the beginning, you have the god-king archetype being the patron of farmers and shepherds. So by the time Jesus Christ shows up, that motif has long been established.
Well, Mari mentioned Zeus being equated with the Egyptian god Amun, and Amun's name means hidden or invisible. He was originally one of the gods of the Hermopolitan Ogdoad, and as such, he represented an aspect of the waters of Nun. As the hidden nature of divinity, he became more popular in the 21st century BC, and eventually he was adopted as the patron deity of Thebes, surpassing Montu.
Kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal. So after the decline of Atonism and the restoration back to polytheism, Amun was depicted as a bearded man with skin of lapis lazuli, wearing a tall, double-feathered crown. Lapis lazuli is that really beautiful, deep, rich blue color with little flecks of gold.
Which is the color association of Jupiter on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life.
Yeah, that was the old color, because before Galileo invented the telescope and they actually got a good look at it, the star itself in the sky kind of had a blue hue, which is why it was assigned either blue or purple. Also, after the Juno spacecraft passed by Jupiter, got a good picture of its south pole. It actually is blue, which is kind of neat, kind of fun Easter egg.
Oh, sweet.
That's incredible.
This stone itself, the lapis lazuli, was considered a stone of the gods in general in Egypt because a lot of times they would describe their gods having either skin or hair made of lapis lazuli.
Berkeley.
So Amun was connected to the power of the wind, and he had epithets like King of the Gods, Lord of the Throne of the Two Lands, Lord of the Two Horns, and Lord of Victory.
Woo!
Later on, his main animal association was the ram species with the looped horns called Ovis arlis platera aegyptiaca, and this is a now extinct species of wild Barbary sheep. When the Greeks found him to be a match to their god Zeus, they actually started to portray the two of them combined as Zeus Amun, and this was typically just Zeus with some badass curly ram horns coming out of the side of his head.
Like Jesus if you were pumping iron and you gave him devil horns.
So Amun formed one of several Egyptian triads. There was a lot of them. For Amun, it was with Mut as his consort and the moon god Khonsu as their son. So since Amun was related to both wind and rulership, you might relate this connection to the effects of rulership that can still be felt even if it isn't seen, much like the wind.
I like that.
Amun gained associations with the sun god Ra as a combined deity, being Amun Ra. So since Amun on his own is associated as an unmanifest, hidden nature of the waters of noon before creation, during creation, he's associated with the hidden power of creation itself, transforming the primeval word into the manifest cosmos. Then after creation, and in combination with Ra, as Amun Ra, he personifies the hidden divine nature behind all other deities, which were considered to manifest as his images, names, and forms.
Are you saying that he is like the white light that contains all of the other gods?
He's representative of how you could say that white light is hidden within everything, and the fact that it's hidden is him.
Oh, okay.
So this is why he ended up being such a popular god, because you would refer to, like, for example, the fifth element of something, the hidden prima materia, and the fact that it's hidden means it's Amun.
Or the aether.
Yeah.
And that's why we say Amen at the end of the prayer.
It is.
Yeah.
So as Amun Ra, his water and air associations combine with the solar fire of the sun, making him an animated force of creation. And in the Old Kingdom, pastoralists used rams to tread the seeds into the ground, as well as to fertilize soil. So being that the male genitalia of a ram is quite prominent, and the planting of seeds was a sexual metaphor, the ram was an obvious symbol of sexuality, fertility, virility, creation. So the species of rams with looped horns is related to Amun and the many variations of forms that Amun takes. There's the ram-headed sphinx or the criosphinx, and it's a common symbol that's attributed to Amun Ra, generally understood to be a protective form of the god.
Oh, you mean the Satan Sphinx? I see.
Yeah, the Satan Sphinx. And this actually relates also back to Aries. In Egyptian astronomy, they had 36 decans, which from a really oversimplified modern understanding would be like each of the 12 zodiacal regions divided into 3.
Like more spokes on a wheel.
Yeah.
You have 12, and then you can make up more spokes if you want to.
Yeah. But the original association of the constellation of Aries corresponded to Thebes, which was called Waset by the Egyptians. But eventually, Aries was associated with the ram of Amun Ra, and as we know, he became patron of Thebes as well, right? So Aries was regarded as the indicator of the reborn sun and the lord of the head. And during the decans of Aries, festival processions would ritualize the migration of a statue of Amun Ra to temples.
Lord of the head, huh?
Lord of the head.
In terms of human anatomy, the Ram of Aries is often associated with the head, a fitting association for the head of the state, and apparently the association is quite ancient.
It makes sense. I think it's worth noting here that it's also possible that an older association with the constellation of Aries may be linked to an old kingdom ram-headed god named Harishef, whose Ram associations predate that of Amun, because Amun only adopted the Ram associations, I believe, in the New Kingdom, and Harishef is like first dynasty. So Harishef's name translates to he who is on his lake. And the constellation of Aries is located next to the seas in the zodiac. The ram god Harishef is a fertility god born from the primeval waters, and his associations as a ram god go back to the first dynasty, like I said, and he's given associations to both fertility and the sacrificial spilling of blood in the coffin texts and the Book of the Dead. So Harishef was also identified with both Osiris and Ra as their Ba soul.
So like their true self is like this ram.
Yeah, it's like their personality and...
Their astrological sign is Aries.
Yeah, pretty much. It also makes sense to bring up the Egyptian ram daddy Noom, since we're talking about rams in Egypt, because Noom was considered a distinct and separate ram deity from Amun. And Khnum is specifically associated with the older native species of ram that has the horizontal horns on its head. And he's known as the great potter. He's the one that fashions humans from clay and places them into their mother's womb to be born. Khnum's name means to unite, join, or build, and could be used as a verb for putting together something. He's the lord of created things from himself, and so he was a fertility god. And he was also given a connection to the waters of the Nile River, the waters of life, and controller of the doors of the Nile. So after fashioning humans from the clay of the Nile, they'd be held to the sun god Ra to be imbued with life, and the souls of the human-to-be would be placed into the womb. So one of Khnum's epithets recorded at the Temple of Esna was Father of Fathers, a kind of patriarchal figure, and an apt counterpart to the related inscription for Nath's matriarchal epithet as Mother of Mothers at the same temple. And Khnum is also related to the divine creation aspects of planning, shaping, and forming.
Which is perfect if we consider the Jupiterian aspects of the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. That sphere, Chesed, is related to planning, shaping, and forming, growing things.
Right. So Egyptians also really liked their puns. They were punny people. And the ram in ancient Egypt was called Ba, which is ma. So it's an onomatopoeic name, which links them phonetically to the Ba soul. And if we take everything previously discussed into consideration, the looped horn ram, like those of Amun, were related to the hidden divine aspects of manifest creation, while the horizontal horn ram, like those of Khnum, related to conceptual or formulative aspects of creation. And these various ram gods were often linked to the Bas of both Ra and Osiris. As the Ba of Ra, Khnum is represented as a ram-headed bird, which represents Ra's creative application of force and its far-reaching effects. And this whole Ba-Ram connection can also be depicted as the falcon of Ra perched atop the back of a ram, implying the manifest nature of divinity supported by the foundation of the creator. It's a Ba-Ram.
Like in the movie with the talking pig.
Yeah. Ba-Ram you.
I think it's interesting to compare the looped horns, which mean the hidden divine, and then the horizontal horns, which relate to the formative aspects of creation. That's a bit like the high priestess and the empress.
This is true. I mean, this is also putting into a nutshell the entirety of ancient Egyptian history, but the horizontal horns are the native species. They were a native species to Egypt, and I think they went extinct prior to the introduction of the loopy horn one. But they like to look back at the homework of their ancestors and then carry it forward and rework it and build upon it. So I think it still stands. Given the association of Ba souls and rams, the 4 Bas of Ra were also combined together as an aspect of Osiris in the 4-headed ram or tetracephalic deity of Benebjet or Benebjedet. And one of his epithets was 4 faces on 1 neck. That's kind of a fun epithet.
Hard to sneak up on.
Yeah. In full statuette form, the heads of the rams were sometimes shown either 2 heads facing forward and 2 back, or each facing a cardinal direction. The Book of the Dead identifies this 4-fold deity as being composed of the Bas of Ra, Tefnut, Shu, and Osiris. And other times it's actually Geb instead of Tefnut. But this connection...
Sometimes Yoda, Darth Vader, Boba Fett.
But this connection of the ram to the number 4 was actually fairly common by the New Kingdom, and it can also be seen in other versions of four-headed ram deities, like that of Amun-Ra Harakti. And the last of the Egyptian ram-headed gods that I'll mention is Kurti, a god of the Duat, because he has power over the 4 winds, because the power of the 4 winds was likened to the hand of Kurti, whose name means lower one. So Kurti served as the ferryman that protected the deceased from demons and controlled the entrance and hallway to the Hall of Truth. But he was also renowned for his power to stop the beating of physical hearts, and it's said that he actually lives on the hearts of men, which is kind of badass.
Wow, Charon got a downgrade from this.
So this ram-headed deity was often depicted in a mummified form, and he's linked to both Khnum and Osiris. And you could consider him as a kind of set aspect or shoe aspect of them. In the coffin text, Kurti becomes a rule that's synonymous with Aker, the lions that face the 2 horizons, which also provides a possible link between him and the ram-headed variants of the Sphinx of Horus, or Hormaket, Horus of the Horizons.
Now that you mention it, that may have something to do with the 4 ram heads on the throne of the emperor.
In the Rider-Waite deck.
Yes.
Right, so that's also the throne that has a rectangular shape to it, and the bottom portion appears to be square in shape, much like the squared bottoms seen on throne depictions in Egyptian art. And we could dive really deep into the throne of Osiris, but I think we did cover that previously in the Black Cross of Saturn episode. So for this episode, I think it just suffices to say that this shape of throne links the connection back to the Osirian lineage of kingship, the authority of which is bestowed by his grandpappy, Ra.
Right, and in the previous 2 cards, there's thrones featured, and we definitely talked about what they could mean for women, but in general, they mean power.
Power. And the Emperor card shares 2 titles, the Son of the Morning, where sun is spelled with either an O or a U, like the Golden Dawn associations, and the other title being Chief Among the Mighty. Since Osiris's name means Mighty One, we might also relate the Emperor as an incarnation of Osra, Osiris, and likewise the related Bas of the 2 deities, Ra and Osiris. And it makes a bit more sense if you look at Osiris's Egyptian name, Osra, as meaning might of Ra, or Ra's might. This implies the rebirth aspects of the sun, Ra's journey, and union with Osiris through the Duat, and the integration and harmony of aspects necessary for that unifying journey. The throne in the card is also a gray color stone, implying a necessary neutrality and harmony of characteristics, but also an immovable set of rules, like they're set in stone. All things considered, it makes sense how Ra and Osiris would have overlapping ram symbolism that ends up being represented graphically in the tarot cards. So these 4 ram heads that you mentioned that are on the throne are rooted in these ancient associations with divinity, rams, and kingship that are otherwise personified as the Bas of the emperor.
I think that's interesting, the agrarian association with Osiris and how that dovetails with the Mesopotamian, this idea of the king who goes into the underworld, and then the green life with which sprouts forth from the earth being an association with that kingly energy.
He's even got the shepherd association, hired worker kind of thing down too.
Yeah, because he has shepherd stuff.
And if you look at the Thoth deck's emperor art, there's 2 very silly looking goats standing behind the emperor himself in the art. And this is just reflective of this whole ram symbolism, zodiac sign stuff, sexual energy. We're going to talk about rams here and there throughout the rest of the episode, but I don't think rams being in the Thoth art need much explaining at this point.
As Aleister Crowley says in the Book of Thoth about the emperor.
He is seated upon the throne, whose capitals are the heads of the Himalayan wild ram, since Aries means a ram. At his feet, couchant, is the lamb and flag, to confirm this attribution on the lower plane, for the ram, by nature, is a wild and courageous animal, like me, lonely in lonely places, whereas, when tamed and made to lie down in green pastures, nothing is left but a docile, cowardly, gregarious, and succulent beast. This is the theory of government.
So what? He's calling us sheeple?
Yes.
Sounds like it.
You have to thrust your against the rock as you ascend upwards towards godhood.
Don't try that at home.
Help me! I can't go one step farther! You're not afraid of falling. What frightens you is climbing.
Rock your clitoris against the mountain!
You're terrified of success.
Give yourself to the world!
Whoa, dude.
So while Crowley is unabashedly calling everybody sheep in his classically snide proto-edgelord fashion, it does pick up a thread of Edenic myth running through the last few episodes. For instance, if it is true that evolutionarily speaking, women figured out plant and animal domestication first, then man's transition from hunter to farmer is only a matter of time, as society moved gradually towards agriculture, sedentary lifestyle, here symbolized by the sheep, and eventually the city-state, which, as we've mentioned prior, initiated the creation of stratified society with rulers and subjects in the first place. Where once the king was the best hunter, he is now merely a keeper of Eve's garden, tied inextricably to the waxing and waning of seasonal agriculture and, by extension, the apparent death and rebirth of the sun each year.
Just like Jesus.
That's what the lamb is supposed to represent, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Like the sacrificial quality of.
So in the Thoth art for the emperor and the empress, there is, like we're saying, a lamb in the bottom right corner. There's a lamb there with a flag. And in the empress card, in the bottom left corner, there's a pelican, which it looks like it's stabbing itself and sacrificing its own blood to feed its own children. Both of these animals are symbols of self-sacrifice, like Jesus. And if that's true, and we consider what Crowley has said about that whole idea of self-sacrifice all the time, those are old Aeon ideas to his notion, to his vocabulary of things, because it's a bit bizarre that you see this Jesus lamb on his artwork when he was so like in protest of Christianity in general. There is some magical secret behind it, but it's the old ways at the same time.
Well, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Right, that's why it's there.
It's like a transitional remnant of a symbol, right?
You take what is useful and discard what is not. And you just make sure not to throw the baby out with the dirty water.
He even explains that in the higher grades of all initiatic orders, at least that's what he says, you have to pay homage to the old Aeon from whence yours was born. And so he says in any mystery religion, the highest echelons are going to have old symbols from the last sacred religion. And parallel to this lamb in the card, I believe in The Vision and the Voice, when he scries the aether that's associated with the wheel, he encounters this exact lamb who is the deceiver of all deceivers. He's the one who catches those who haven't been caught by the raven, which rules over the mind, and the wolf, which rules over the flesh. It's the lamb who's deceived even the faithful that consumes and is the most bloody of all of the animals or whatever. It's an interesting piece of Vision in the Voice.
It just makes sense, though, since if you think of them like egregores, they're quite powerful from the amount of time they've been around. So why wouldn't you use an old egregore even in a different aeon? You just change how you use it.
I mean, to be fair, so much of, quote, divine kingship and the right to go kill a whole bunch of people was identified with that cute little lamb for so long, you know?
So I think it's an interesting inclusion in the Thoth deck's art for this card that there's like some mysterious light shining from the right side of the card, and it causes a shadow to appear right over where the lamb is sitting. It partially covers it. It's not totally in the shade. And it's also in line with the ram-headed scepter that the emperor is holding in his hand. It's weird that artistically there's a connection there. The light is in line with this ram scepter, and then it also causes the lamb to be cast in shadow. It's a little bit like hold on to the old Aeon in certain ways. Do it with dignity and honor and fulfill the job of the emperor right.
This lamb laying down in the card also brings to mind the prayer. I think it's from Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. It's exactly what this lamb is doing. He's laying down under the Lord.
Flashback to the mortal Anchises, who hooked up with Aphrodite and is the matriarchal lineage of the royal line of the Roman emperors. His name, Anchises, if you pronounce it correctly, is probably Anchises.
Like Ankh?
Like Ankh-Isis, almost.
Ankh-Isis? Well, isn't that serendipitous? Because in the Rider-Waite deck, he holds a Crux Ansata, or an Ankh staff. And A.E. Waite actually acknowledges the scepter design in the card as being a form of the Ankh. So Christianity was introduced to Egypt around 42 AD, and then by about 400 to 500 AD, the Ankh had been adopted by the Coptic Christians of Egypt as a symbol of Christ, with a slight modification to the loop at the top.
Oh, now it looks like a little person rising up maybe out of their grave.
Yeah, I believe it's being adapted to be almost like the cross used in crucifixion, and the circle is supposed to be the halo, the light shining. So this updated design is referred to as a Crux Ansata, a handle cross.
Oh, it has a convenient carrying handle.
Just like an ankh. So as a further manifestation of the Empress card, the Emperor complements her universal receptivity with his virile power, to which he responds. And AU8 stated that it is because of this that we might consider the Emperor as being the one who seeks to remove the veil of Isis.
Naughty, naughty.
So this emperor holds that Crux Ansata staff in his sword hand, or his right hand, implying that he actively wields this power of life. And interestingly, in the original Rider-Waite deck, the hand that wields this Crux Ansata is colored the same golden color as the cross itself, while his other hand is actually a normal skin tone. And to me, this implies a kind of necessary golden nature to wield the cross of life in his position of manifest power.
I have a theory that it might also be a Crux Ansata in the Thoth deck, because you can see the two rams off to the side of the Emperor, right? But the wand or the scepter he's holding, the head on it, although it looks like a ram, it appears a bit differently than the heads that are flanking him. You could even argue it looks like a birth canal.
I think I mentioned before in a previous episode that the Aries sign, like the one that you use that's just the sign, looks strikingly familiar in hieroglyphs as the sign for a uterus, which I believe was a goat's uterus, actually.
And so we have this motif of the Emperor holding on to the Empress's generative power, perhaps symbolic of his matriarchal lineage.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense about certain sections in the paid section, considering that idea. It's a lot of sex stuff involved with the Emperor.
Oh, we're gonna dive way deep into this.
We're gonna go deep into the birth canal?
Oh, yes.
And isn't that always good news? But if you'd like to hear more about the birth canal, the secrets of the Emperor of the Tarot, including the Qabalistic Tree of Life, the fish hook, hey, the window.
More symbolism in the images.
Some Kubrick.
Some more Egypt, hieroglyphs, that kind of stuff.
Then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your tiny monthly donation of just $5 will get you not only this extended episode, but all of our extended episodes going back over 3 years. I'll send you a 5x5 high-quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny cover art and the secret keys to our Discord server, where you can talk to Dingus and give him happy birthday wishes because he's 24 years old today. Congratulations, Dingus.
Nice.
Woo!
I hope you at least make it to 27. It'd be great to have you around for a few more years.
Oh, God.
Oh my god.
Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew.
This is a critical announcement. If you'd like to be prepared for next week's show, please pick up a copy of Good Night, Room 9 by Cody George on Amazon right now. It'll get to your house quickly with fast shipping, and you will get to enjoy in 1 week's time a cozy, creepy, occult thriller the likes of which you have never read before and may never read again.